Hey everyone! Welcome to episode 5 of the Exploration series. In this series, we pick a familiar favorite and explore some different versions of it from all around the world. I'm Amy, and in this episode, we are leaving Europe and heading east to Thailand. We're also moving forward in time because pizza in Thailand is still pretty new. Modern pizza as we know it came to Thailand in 1980 when Pizza Hut opened its first shop in Pattaya. They sold mainly traditional European and American style pizzas, but then in 2001, Pizza Hut's original franchisee broke off from the company and the Pizza Company was born and has since become the dominant pizza purveyor in Thailand. While they continue to sell the common European and American style pizzas, the Pizza Company also started adding local Thai-inspired pizzas that come with amazing and unique flavors, like tom yum, green curry, peanut, and so many more. Today, we're going to make a Thai-inspired pizza that is unlike anything we've made so far in this series, so let's get to it. To our stand mixer bowl, we need to add a half cup of warm water, or between 105 and 110 Fahrenheit. Add 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 1/4 teaspoons or 1 packet of active dry yeast. Give this a quick whisk and let this sit for 5 to 10 minutes or until the mixture gets foamy. This tells us if our yeast is active and ready to make our dough rise. Now, if it doesn't get foamy, unfortunately, we'll need to start over with some new yeast. This is also called blooming the yeast. When the yeast gets nice and foamy, we're going to add 1 more cup of warm water, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 teaspoon of white vinegar, and 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. And now comes our flour. We're going to add 3 to 4 cups of bread flour, but we want to add these 1 cup at a time because we may not actually need the entire 4 cups. We're also going to start mixing this on a low speed after adding the first cup and then add by the cup as we go. I also needed to scrape down the bowl a couple of times because the flour tends to get stuck at the sides of the bowl with the wet ingredients just kind of swirling around in the middle. I did use the full 4 cups, but you may end up needing a little less depending on your flour, humidity, even your ambient temperature that day. Mix this for about 6 to 8 minutes until the dough comes together and it'll pull away from the sides. The dough should be slightly sticky, but not crazy sticky. Like if it's too sticky at first, mix it for another 30 seconds to a minute and then check it again. Little bits of it may stick to you, but you really don't want it hanging on like the mirror in the Matrix or anything. When the dough is ready, oil a large bowl. I'm using olive oil, but you could also just use an oil spray. Then using a spatula, move your dough from the mixer bowl into the oil bowl. Roll it around so the dough is coated in the oil, which keeps the dough from sticking to the top if it touches it and prevents the dough from drying out. Cover this with a lid or with plastic wrap and set it to the side to rise until it doubles in size, which could take about an hour to an hour and a half. With that dough rising, let's get our sauce and toppings ready to go. Now, since this dough does not sit to rise a second time, we want everything else to be ready when that dough is ready. And the first step is that we need to get our chicken cooking. You only need a heaping cup of cooked and shredded chicken, which is about 1 chicken breast, but I'm making 2, so I have some extra chicken for some other yummy stuff. I'm boiling my chicken here because I found that for me, this is the easiest and quickest way to get shreddable chicken. I added my 2 chicken breasts to a pot of water, and then I'm going to bring this to a boil and cook these until they're at least 165 degrees, and this took about 15 to 20 minutes total. Okay, so our dough is rising and our chicken cooking, so let's get working on the sauce. And this pizza is the first one we've made together that does not have a tomato sauce. This pizza has a peanut sauce, and let me tell you, this sauce was absolutely incredible. To my food processor, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of peanut butter, and this can be creamy or chunky peanut butter, whichever is your favorite. I'm using extra chunky peanut butter because I love me some chunky peanut butter. Next is 2 teaspoons of rice vinegar and 2 teaspoons of soy sauce. Add 1 teaspoon of olive oil and half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Forewarning, this pizza has a solid medium heat, so if you want a more mild sauce, only add 1/4. Next is ginger, and you want 1 tablespoon of grated ginger, half a teaspoon of sesame oil, and last but not least, 2 teaspoons of honey for some sweetness. Pulse this until everything mixes together really nicely. I did have one little setback here though, in that my food processor was a little big for this. So I ended up scraping everything into a bowl and whisking it all together by hand. You can also add water if your sauce is a little too thick, between 1 and 3 tablespoons, until you're happy with the consistency. I added 2 tablespoons of water and it turned out perfect. For the rest of our toppings, we're gonna do just a little bit of shredding and chopping. First, we need some shredded carrot, about 3 tablespoons worth. I started with 2 carrots, but I only actually needed 1, so I ended up with a fresh carrot snack to munch on. When the carrot is shredded, I'm pressing the shreds with some paper towels to get out any extra water. We don't want any added moisture from the carrots to make our pizza soggy. Then just put these to the side, and next is some green onion. For the onion, we want a 1/4 cup, and we just need a rough chop for these. You can also use some diced red onion instead, which would make this pizza even more beautifully colorful than it already is. Again, set these to the side and grab some fresh cilantro. We want a 1/4 cup of this as well, and again, we're just doing a rough chop here. But before cutting this up, we want to remove the leaves from the stems because this is a garnish on the pizza after it cooks, and we only want the leaves. When we have enough of those, I gave it a quick chop and set these to the side with the carrots and onions. Okay, so now last but not least, and some say this might be the most important part, is the cheese. We're going to shred up some mozzarella, about 12 ounces worth. I'm using a food processor, but you could also do this by hand with a box grater, or even a handheld like I used for the carrots. I would recommend shredding your cheese up fresh though, because pre-shredded cheese has an anti-caking agents like cellulose or potato starch, and that can make the cheese a little gritty when it melts. And please, if your house is anything like mine, guard the cheese. Okay, so now we're done with all that, it's time for our chicken. When the chicken's at least 165 Fahrenheit, we want to pull the chicken breast out of the water and get them all shredded up into bite-sized pieces. You could also dice the chicken if you wanted, but you would want a relatively small dice so you don't have huge chunks of chicken on your pizza. Just like all the rest, when the chicken's all shredded up, put it to the side to wait for our dough to be ready. This is also the point where you want to preheat the oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. When the dough has doubled in size, we'll flour a work surface, but not too much. We don't need a ton of flour, just enough to keep it from sticking as we roll out the dough. And our dough looks amazing, so let's punch it so it doesn't look amazing and poofy anymore, and turn it out onto our floured surface. Now, this dough ball is big enough for 2 to 3 pizzas, depending on the size of pizza that you want, and I'm going to cut this into 3. I made the dough blob into a dough ball and then rolled that gently into a sort of tube type thing that's easy to cut into portions. I then turned each portion into its own nice little dough ball, and here is where you can freeze this if you want to. Now, I'm only making 1 pizza at the moment, so I have 2 dough balls that I'm not actually going to use right now. So I sprayed a little oil on some plastic wrap, and I wrapped up each of the 2 extra dough balls. Then I put them in a freezer bag and labeled it so I didn't forget what it was, and tossed them in the freezer. When I want a pizza, I can thaw one out, and I don't have to start making pizza dough from scratch next time. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. Using a rolling pin, we want to roll this dough ball out nice and thin, which for me was about 14 inches in diameter. As you can see here, the dough just kept trying to pull back together. When this happens, the best thing to do is to let the dough sit and rest for 5 to 10 minutes and then start rolling again. By letting the dough rest, the gluten strands in the dough will relax and the dough will hold the shape you want more easily. And after the dough rested, it was finally ready to listen to reason and did what it was told. So now we are ready to make our Thai-style pizza. I'm using a cast iron pizza pan, so I had it heating in the oven as the oven was preheating, but you can also use a pizza stone in the oven or even a regular steel pizza pan. I sprinkled my pan with a little cornmeal to prevent any sticking and then placed my dough on the pan. Now, if you use a preheated cast iron pan, be really careful because this thing is ripping hot. The dough will change shape as you handle it, so just kind of shape it as best you can on the pan without burning yourself. Once your dough is the shape you want, poke it with a fork a bit to prevent bubbles from forming in the middle of the pizza because this is some bubbly pizza dough. Then pop this in the oven for about 2 minutes to give the dough a head start because we want our dough to cook the whole way through, but the toppings on this one cook really quick. After the 2 minutes, pull the crust out of the oven right away so it doesn't overcook. You can see here, even after I poked it with a fork, the dough still got a little bubbly, but that's okay at this stage. The bubbles will go down as I'm adding the sauce on top. We're gonna start with our amazing peanut sauce, and we're gonna use every bit of this sauce on this pizza. Spread it around so it's nice and even, leaving about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch around the edge. Next, we add our chicken, and you can add pretty much whatever you want. If you like insane amounts of chicken, go nuts. I used about half of the chicken I made, or about 1 chicken breast, and it ended up being the perfect amount of meat in each bite. Next are the onions and carrots, and again, go as heavy or as light as you want. I'm going for even amounts here so that every bite of pizza has just a little bit of everything in it. And yep, you guessed it, last is the cheese. Again, since we are all about having things the way we want them here, add as much as you like. The cheese we shredded is more than I needed for just this one pizza, so I'm going to use the extra for other goodies. But if you want mountains of cheese and that is your dream, then you should absolutely chase that dream. Now, pop this in the oven for 7 to 12 minutes or until the cheese is melty and the crust is nicely browned. I started at 7 minutes and that was perfect for me. And here it is. Look at this beautiful pizza, fresh out of the oven, and this pizza smells amazing. And you can already see how different this one is from the other pizzas we've made. The green onion and the carrots give this pizza such a fresh look. Now we just need to finish it up so we can eat this thing. First things first, get the pizza off that hot pan so it doesn't keep cooking. And then we're gonna sprinkle on some of that fresh cilantro all over the top. Seriously, as if this pizza couldn't get any more colorful, that fresh green is just beautiful. Now to slice this thing up and we're ready to try this. Okay, so this pizza was probably one of the most flavorful pizzas ever. That peanut sauce was perfect. It is very tangy, but also sweet and spicy, and this pizza does pack a bit of a kick. But for us, it was the perfect amount of kick. The onions, carrots, cilantro gave this such a fresh taste. And the pizza is so light, it is not heavy or greasy at all. And the crust. Oh yeah, I think this is now my go-to crust. It is bubbly, but it's not too bubbly. Nice and thin, but not too hard and too crunchy. It just has such a nice flavor. The vinegar gives that crust just a little bit of a tang, which complemented the sauce just perfectly. I know I say this every single time, but if you only make one pizza from this series, make this one. It is so beautifully unique, and I'm gonna make this thing a lot. Thank you for watching Explorations Thai Style. Please like and subscribe, leave me a comment if you enjoyed this video, and definitely check out the other episodes of this series because we've made some awesome pizzas. Stay tuned next Wednesday because we're headed back to the New World, but not back to the USA. We're heading to Mexico, and we're gonna make a Mexican pizza, but trust me, this is not the Taco Bell you're thinking of. Also, come and hang out with me on Sundays for some home-cooked comfort food, because this week, we are making one of the most famous and iconic of all famous and iconic foods, and you will definitely want to be there for that amazingness. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Wednesday for some more exploring. Bye!